Welcome to the Growth and Banter podcast. My name is Blake McCullough, CEO and founder of GMS Media Group, one of Australia's leading digital marketing agencies. This podcast is for anyone looking to learn the insights and strategies of successful leaders and how to lead a successful life. Today, we're joined by Dain Walker, CEO and founder of Rivyl, the agency podcast, and also he's going to talk about his new book, The 90-Day Brand Plan. I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Dain.
Blake, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
Yeah, likewise, mate. It's good to have you on. You've been proclaimed as brand daddy online.
Oh, yeah.
And evidently so, given that you've got a lot of popularity online on social media. You've also got a very successful agency, Rivyl. Also, your agency podcast, the agency podcast. And you've just recently wrote a book, The 90-Day Brand Plan.
Yeah.
So a lot of accolades there, a lot to sort of dig into today. Let's start off by understanding how you got into branding in the first place.
Oh man, how far back do you want to go? To give you like the short string of it, I was when I was in my youth. So as a young guy, my mother, she was in and out of abuse with alcohol, and she was on and off, medication. So like, I guess growing up as a kid, coming in and out of that, I kind of cut my teeth, like kind of having to grow up young and early. And then when I was in my early youth, I was like in and out of BMX gangs, being a naughty teenager and all the rest of it. But I kind of started to get into personal development and understanding marketing, branding, sales, etc. through like Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins. And then as I was hitting my later teens, I started reading books by like Robert Kiyosaki. I started listening to Tony Robbins CDs and tapes and things like that. So I was always kind of interested in educating others and trying to upskill myself. But because of my youth and my upbringing, having to kind of, dive into psychology and heal my trauma and go through all those experiences. I think a lot of people in business are going through trauma. So it's like, it's pretty similar, in many ways, shapes and forms and aspects. We're all just trying to rehabilitate ourselves to be successful in business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, so branding really kicked off when I was doing MLM when I was 20, and I built a downline organization of about 2,500 people in 2 years. I was hosting events, training my team, developing leaders. But I found that the company I was working with were struggling to market themselves. So I was like, I'm just going to create my own team, brand it, create a logo, build a website, and try to cultivate culture. So I was kind of unknowingly branding very early on in different business ventures I was going into. Later on, I ended up through a bunch of different failed businesses and in and out of the workforce selling. I found myself at a Gary Vee event, and a bunch of speakers were getting up on stage and spruiking their products and services, and I was checking my watch like, man, I got to get out of here. Gary Vee comes out on stage and he's just like, guys, I'm not here to sell you shit. If you want to start a business, just go fucking start a business. Right. And I was like, okay, like I don't need a boot camp or a program. I'm just going to go start an agency. On the drive home that night, downloaded Photoshop, started DMing and texting friends like, who wants a logo? And eventually started to generate clients, started to get people interested. Selling like $50 logos, $100 posters, whatever I could get. I was working at Telstra, and what happened was I started making content about what I was doing. And this guy in New York reached out, and he was like, hey man, like I like your content. He was a mortgage broker. His name was Mario. And he said to me, can you make my content? And I was like, sure. And he goes, can you make it for free? And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, look, I've got a bunch of mortgage broker students that need help with their branding. Like, can you design their logos, make their content, and start to like develop their media? And I was like, sure. So I was like reading books, attending seminars, downloading whatever I could learn at the time to try to upskill myself. And found myself in a world of branding, kind of by haphazardly just having a crack at business. And found out real quick that running a content creation agency for a year was kind of rough. But I enjoyed the branding component. So then I started hiring people and branching out of content. And just going all in on brand identity development. And then since then, we've just started to scale higher and grow the Rivyl business globally. Yeah,
well, it's actually quite funny because I had a similar story and background of how I just fell into marketing. I was actually working within the event circuit background at a company called Global One, which my office was just around the corner from here, doing multi-stage speakers, and was the marketing manager there. So I got exposed to a lot of that personal development that you spoke of as well, you know, and I think that naturally just gave me exposure to direct response marketing, you know, sales marketing. You know, there's a lot of speakers there that I sort of gravitated towards. You mentioned Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki. Was there any particular speaker that you sort of, you know, aside from your Gary Vee story, that you sort of resonated well with, that you decided to sort of go all in with what you're doing?
Yeah, I think like some of the old school stuff really speaks to me. Like Jim Rohn, who's passed on now, but he had a lot of books, a lot of online seminars, a lot of audio books, CDs, cassette tapes, like whatever I could get my hands on from him, I found interesting, because he not only spoke about business, but he talked about style, delivery, charisma, vocabulary, stage presence, interactivity, communication, and I just absorbed all of that. And I think, you know, he was actually Tony Robbins' mentor.
Right.
And, you know, then I went down a Tony Robbins rabbit hole. But another big one for me was probably Grant Cardone. You know, some people get turned off by him, particularly Australians. But he has some pretty epic intellectual property, and he teaches a lot of fundamental sales tactics. And I think what's really given us a leg up in the branding space is, of course, our team are phenomenal at visual identity, fantastic at delivering these branding packages. But I think what's given us a nous to scale as quickly as we did was through sales and marketing, like just really knowing how to produce free media for the masses, leverage that, and then cultivate a fan base. And then through a fan base, people just talk about us. And then that's fed the business for 5 years. Most of our competitors do rely on Meta and partnerships, etc. But we've found that it's been faster and easier to grow through just drowning the internet with as much free media as we can give it. And that's just continued to feed the business. And yeah, I think for me, the only other person that comes to mind is, you know, the Stoics. So I love Ryan Holiday's books. I love, I guess, reading about Stoicism and so forth. But I don't know, I tend to go really deep on one particular subject matter for like 6 months, and I'll read it 4, 5, 6 times to really absorb it. Kind of like a locust, I'll absorb a farm, and then I'll find the next one. So at the moment, really diving into more of the, I guess, psychology side of things, like Carl Jung, etc.
And you're right as well. Like, I feel psychology is so closely tied to marketing, because with marketing in any facet, and I think branding more so than anything else within marketing, having to understand human psychology, human behavior is the starting point. You know, and without getting that right, the rest of it falls over. So that human psychology point there, I think, is one that gets neglected often with business owners, companies, and even other branding people, not really digging deep enough into, you know, who is someone's customer? You know, what is their archetype? You know, what makes that brand stick out compared to others? Would you feel that psychology is a big part in the process with Rivyl and what you do?
Yeah, psychology is everything. Like, whether you're in sales, marketing, advertising, content creation, you're managing a team, you're teaching leadership, you're a life coach, what have you. Like, I think psychology really drives the market. And when we're building brands, the first thing we really try to understand is the psychology of the entrepreneur behind the business. Because, you know, we're handing this vehicle to someone, and we're trying to make sure that they can drive it the way they like to drive. So, you know, you'll find different types of entrepreneurs. So we really try to unpack the person in front of us and how they envision their company, which can be harder than you might think. Like, when you sit down and you're like, what's your vision? People are like, oh, money, you know, like, let's go deeper than that. But once we understand the psychology of the person, the team that we're in collaboration with, we try to kind of match their energy. Then we try to understand, okay, well, who in the market are you trying to encompass? Who in the market are you trying to encompass your brand around? And I think that the general thing that we hear is almost like people are NPCs. They kind of repeat the same dialogue. When we ask them the question, like, who are we targeting? They would say everyone. But you know,
we're programmed the same, aren't we?
We're programmed the same. People are like, oh, we want to target everyone. Like, girls, you know, everything from girls who are in their 20s all the way into their 70s. I'm like, wait a second. Women in their 20s are very different from women in their 70s. So we have to try to help our partners, like, really shrink and chunk down into the psychology of the cohort that they want to intend to target most. An easy one for people to understand is Nike. So like, people wear Nikes to walk their dog. People wear Nikes, to just go do Pilates. But if you look at the ethos of the brand, it's really built and engineered around the mind of the athlete. When we're building a brand, psychology drives the entire thing. The difference between I think a company that gets like a $10 million valuation and, they're skyrocketing north of 100 million, like LSKD, for example, it always comes back to psychology. They're not scaling because their product is fantastic. They're scaling because people talk about their brands.
Yeah, and it's often the case that the product isn't that great, right?
Yeah,
or the product is quite similar, but one product that's very similar to another one can be vastly different, like you said.
Yeah, everyone likes to think their product is the best product, and everyone thinks that all of their competitors suck and they're trash and they're fantastic. But it always comes back to like, okay, cool. Like, let's not try to market a product here. Let's try to build a brand that is culturally relevant and credible to the market that you really want to exist for. And Alan Dibbs talks about it in one of his books. He was on
the podcast, Alan Dibb. Yeah.
Oh, dude, he's
legend.
He's the GOAT. And he was saying that if you're building a brand, think about it like a parade in town. And, there might be a parade out there that has no leader. All you have to do is show up and lead the parade.
Yeah.
And, a great brand that did that was Liquid Death. You wouldn't think there's a parade out there of people are metalheads that want to drink water. But, they led that parade. So it's a matter of identifying what's a gap in the market that's not being served in a culturally relevant, cool way. And how do we get out there and lead that? Like LSKD, for example, as opposed to Lululemon, same product arguably, but the culture is different. The brand feels different. The target audience feels different. What does it mean to buy one brand over the other? And then when you're wearing it, what does it make you? Yeah.
And I think LSKD has that community centric focus versus Lulu. Lulu has a great product, and I think they lean into that a little bit more. LSKD, they lean into that community. And I get that vibe a lot more from LSKD versus Lulu.
It feels a bit more local, feels a bit more Australian. They're doing fantastic with like the kind of wave of running culture, and they really dived on that. And you'll have cohorts like Nike started with running, and then they dived into different channels of sports. I think sometimes people try to go too upmarket too quickly or too big market too quickly. It's just really crush it with one type of client. And then if you're crushing with that, it'll typically bleed out into other types of audiences.
Yeah, that omni-channel word is a good one as well. Like I think those brands have sort of started with that one market. Then they've piggybacked on other partnerships. So Nike going into basketball,
Exactly.
So it's in creating that dispersed market at the end game, but over time, it's been incremental.
Yeah, we all want to like cheat the game and go straight to the finish line.
Yeah, we do.
But if you try to shortcut the game will always shortcut you. You gotta know we exist for this market.
Yeah.
And you got to know about what is it that you bring to the equation beyond the product's value?
Yeah, starting with the niche and then, and creating diversity over time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now with your popularity online, versus a lot of other branding specialists, I think branding, again, I feel is probably one of the most missed and neglected skill sets when it comes to, one, starting a brand, and two, scaling a brand. How did you cut through all the clutter there, and what's the main thing do you feel makes you guys different versus all the other branding so-called experts out there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people out there. We don't proclaim to be like the only one or the best. I think
although I don't feel there's many really crushing the game here in Australia.
There's a few that are fantastic agencies that have great partnerships out there for sure. I think our unfair advantage is personal branding.
Yeah.
So, traditionally, most of the agencies that I know of here in the Asia Pacific have been around 15, 20 years. They've kind of grown up in the industry, branched out, started their own agency with some friends or what have you. They get a couple contracts with some big companies that kind of seed the initial growth of the company, and then they start to bring in through referrals or through meta advertising or SEO or Google ads or what have you. What's I guess slingshot us on this trajectory was the fact that we were producing media, podcasting,
Yeah.
Instagram contents, YouTube contents, getting on stages, like producing our own intellectual property, giving it away for free, and building a fan base. And I think a lot of people are missing out on the personal brand component to their company.
Yeah, and I think that personal brand is the number one best thing in today's economy. We've gone from, I think, that personal brand was more of like, oh, you're an influencer, to now it's being treated as a bit more of that's the power within a brand today from a business point of view. And going into that creator economy, I think a lot of people are now starting to realize, a little bit late to the game, myself included, that personal brand element, piggybacking off, whatever company that they're running, is way better than just going all in on one particular brand. Having the leverage between your personal brand and Rivyl, and that together is power in itself.
I would agree with that, and I think that the creator economy, if I could tilt that slightly, I think that I'd like to think of it as like we're getting into an era around the identity economy.
Yeah,
slightly different, because when you think of the creator economy, you think of someone who's an influencer who makes TikTok videos and is a creative type. And when we meet business owners and they're like, "Hey, do you think I could have a brand?" I'm like, "You already have one." Like, for example, the CEO of MJ Bale or the CEO of Guzman and Gomez, like these guys have enormous brands as individuals. They might not produce online social media content, but in their industry, in their field of expertise, people know who they are, they know what they're about, they have a story, they have a reputation. I think everyone has an identity, and we're in an economy now where people are realizing like, okay, I don't have to be a creative type, but I can run a business, or I can even be an employee in a business. I can leverage my identity virtually and try to find a way to give myself more credibility, more relevance, and make myself more value as an individual in the world. And that can open doorways for better jobs. You can scale up a company faster. I'm seeing this rise of people as employees make content about themselves in their job for the company that they're in. But if you take the identity economy, we're only seeing the beginning of it. People think that content creation is like at scale. Man, we're really honestly at the very beginning of like the future of how brands, companies are going to behave and operate.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. It's not necessarily just for the owners of a brand or directors of a brand. We've actually redone our KPIs this year, and it is literally just on creating content online. So then it's not just about me or my business partner or whoever else in the business. It's about all of us joining onto that same story, not forcing them to post on social media, definitely not that, but allowing them the opportunity to be part of that story. And, if there's 20 of us, then it's what the power of 20 versus one person is so much more, powerful, and it creates authenticity around that brand. So I think people understand, and you're right as well, like that employee can take that skill set with them to another job and continue to have their personal brand as the authority in that space, and I think that's a lot of power as well that a lot of people don't sort of understand within organizations.
Yeah, and we're in a very different world now. Like, think about the internet. It's still, I guess the internet came in waves, right? So we're hearing all this stuff now, like AI is going to replace everyone's jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm seeing AI already, kind of accelerate, decelerate. Like, I think building a personal brand, it's shifting, like how you build a personal brand now, like right now in the past 6 months, is very different to what we've seen over the last 5 years. The creator economy kind of boomed it. Like, you had the creative types, taking photos of their breakfast, etc., on Instagram like 7 or 8 years ago, or making things out of jars and putting lights in it, all that kind of creative stuff. Like, we're getting into the era now where it's established. You have a business cohort, a creative cohort, and so on. But in the world of business in particular, I'm now seeing it like shift in conversation. So for example, when we started 5 years ago, the conversation with CEOs, executives, founders of like successful enterprises and companies, they would come to me and go, what exactly is personal brands? 4 years ago, that turned into, I'm thinking about maybe doing this in the future, but I'm not ready. 3 years ago, do you think I should start a personal brand? 2 years ago, I should probably start a personal brand. Now it's like, hey man, I have to, like, how do I get in? So it just feels like the pressure is really on now for company owners to go, I got to start doing something with my content.
Yeah, a lot of people were adverse to it. They were like, my face does not want to be in front of the camera. I don't want to be on social media. You know, people were hiding behind that. And now I'm seeing people, you're dead right. Like, I'm seeing people that were so against it that are now investing tens of thousands of dollars a month just on creating content for their personal brand.
Yeah.
You know?
If I look over the fence and I think about my competitors, they must, you know, potentially feel frustrated by me, because here I am, some kid that worked at Telstra 5 years ago. You know, now I've got, you know, near 40 employees. I'm building a branding agency. We're stealing their lunch and eating it in front of them on social media. And they're like, who the hell is this kid? So now it's just, you're seeing people rise quickly because they have, they're leveraging the attention economy. They're able to cultivate more leads through organic content than they can pay for on Meta or Google or SEO or what have you. We're in the economy now where it's all about organic media. That is the singular most effective way to market yourself, is having a personal brand, a cohort of team members that also have personal brands, and just producing organic media like a documentary or a television show. That's what's feeding the fastest growing companies right now in Sydney, in Australia, is predominantly personally brand led. Even Guzman and Gomez, like, arguably not much different from Mad Mex, but the CEO has such a great reputation that investors love him, the community loves him, the fans love him. It doesn't matter what type of company you're in. If you can cultivate a personal brand, you can crush the competition.
Yeah, I always say it's probably the biggest common thread with a lot of the brands that we work with that become really successful, far apart than our other brands, and also a lot of speakers I've had on this podcast, is that there is a founder-led story, and that there is a huge focus on creating that behind-the-scenes story and documentation. You know, think of Jane Liu, who's been on here. She's a walking PR machine. You know,
she's
with
amazing.
Showpo. You know, she's constantly, she's got a phone and camera and a little light in her carry bag everywhere she goes. You know, if there's an opportunity to create content, she'll take it out. Same as Adam and Raquel from Who Was Elijah. You know, Simon from Culture Kings. They've all got this hunger and ability just to create and document as much content as possible within their business.
And they're amazing, man. Like, we're lucky we get to work with Adam and Raquel. We've worked with Simon Beard, and like, these people just understand that that's the economy that we're in. Like, I remember asking Simon Beard when he reached out to me on Instagram like 4 years ago. He's like, dude, we need to work together. And I was like, oh, okay. I said to him, I'm like, dude, why do you want to work with me? Like, you can go hire Ogilvy, Wyden, Kennedy. Like, he's like, man, I just fucking hate people in suits. And I was like, okay. He's like, you get it. You're on social media. You're using it. I want to work with people that are close to the reality of the world that we're in. And I think the entrepreneurs right now that understand, I need to have the connective tissue to what's happening now. And almost you need the ability to be able to see around the corner. And if we're looking around the corner right now when it comes to branding, I would say right now we're in the era of what I call co-authorship. So if you take Red Bull, for example, and you look at someone like Travis Pastrana, famous motorcycle stuntsman, you know, Red Bull go, hey, here's our brand. We're all about human potential and pushing the limits. Travis, what would you like to do with the brand? And he's like, man, I got some ideas. And Red Bull lend the brand to this influencer and they co-create material, co-create media. That's the era that we're in right now. And you don't have to be Red Bull to do that. Like, Raquel's doing this with local influencers. Simon Beard does this with, you know, celebrity talent. How do you co-author material for the mass market in your niche, right? The era that we're going into just around the corner from that is mass personalization. Instead of collaborating with a famous influencer, how do we collaborate with the mass market? How do we allow them to get their hands into the brands and make their own material? GoPro's doing this. They have an annual competition where they give away $1 million to the best piece of content, and then they get 40,000 submissions of content, and that's like a decade's worth of free material that they can just publish online. It costs them $1 million. So like, think about the amount of companies that could spend $1 million on marketing and just aren't, but you can have your community make content for you.
So I think it was White Fox. I saw an example. They've built this university program within their business model, and they basically will send free product and have a gamification to actually have like certification within their university program. So all these university students are literally shooting content to learn how to become a creator. And then they actually get the certificate and free content. So there's a constant stream of new content for that brand to publish, which I thought was amazing. It's a win for the customer, win for the creator, and win for the brand as well.
And what I love about that and what's happening now is like lazy marketing's dead. Lazy advertising's dead. Gone are the days where you could just throw cash at the problem and it be dealt with.
Yeah,
5 years ago, you could just pump out ads and just like print money.
So true.
Now it's swung back to the creative realm where like everyone's realized you can just try to throw money at it, but everyone complains, oh, it's not working anymore. And it's like, no, because people want organic creative material. The market psychology right now is like, don't try to sell me. Gen Z are super anti-sell.
Yeah.
As a millennial, and I personally was kind of okay being sold to, but my parents were super susceptible to getting credit cards and being marketed to by Visa, etc. But I find as generations get more technologically oriented and they live online, they don't want to be sold to. They're like, this is our domain. We want to hang out. We want to socialize. We want to have fun. We're here to be entertained. Don't try to ram products down our throats. So brands are now having to get really clever with the creative, and they're having to be social. They're having to interact. So what I love about White Fox is they're cultivating the new creative marketing flow. And some people are saying, are you terrified of AI? I'm not, because it's just giving people more access to creativity. The creative demand is increasing. You have to be clever. You have to be intellectual. You have to socialize. You can't be lazy anymore.
Yeah.
You have to really push.
Yeah, no, it's getting harder, 100%, but that separates the good brands from the bad brands, right?
Exactly, and that opens an opportunity for new people to get into the market, because if you think about it, like big incumbent brands that have been around for decades are slow to get onto these trends.
Yeah.
You can get your leg up in the market really quickly just by being clever, being a little creative, being resourceful. You don't need a big budget to do some crazy stuff. Like, for example, Troy Candy, hired a helicopter and wrapped it for 20 grand and did a crazy giveaway to people that would purchase his products, and he made like $7 million in 3 hours online.
Wow.
So like, you don't have to have a ridiculous ad budget to make money. You just have to be clever.
Yeah, it's consumer sophistication has definitely caught up. I think when the online economy, was really not its peak, but when monetization started happening on Meta back in 2010-ish, brands started to get on board it. It was such a new platform that I don't think that brand importance was there. I think it was more throw the brand guidelines out the window. Let's just try and get a result. And that's gone 360 now. I feel like we've gone back to the importance of brand development like it was with, traditional media. There was definitely a period there that people was just free for all. It was the Wild West, and people were just doing anything and everything just to get a result. But I think in turn that did damage a lot of brands over time, and you would see a lot of brands come and go. Whereas now it's about the sustainability, the authenticity, and customers want to believe in a brand because there's a lot of distrust, a lot of scamming, a lot of other brands ruining it for everyone else. So yeah, we have to work harder on showing a customer why you're legit and why people should buy from you.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, like just to, I guess, demystify branding a little bit, the difference between marketing, sales, and branding is they coexist. They need each other.
Yes.
They're symbiotic. Branding is less about the visual system, the font, the colors, the logo. It's more about like, what is the culture of this company? What does it symbolize? What does it represent? Who do I become if I associate myself with it? Why does it exist? What's the narrative? What's the story? Why should I care? This kind of what can't be seen but can be understood subject matter that then actualizes through visual and verbal systems. That's branding. That then translates into marketing. So when you're looking at, okay, we need to do SEO, we need to do ADMs, we need to do meta ads, we need to make content, all of this subject matter, this is marketing. How do we produce something that gets attention? How do we invest money for a profit? So when you ask yourself, what's the ROI of branding? It doesn't exist in branding unless you look at the balance sheet. So if you go, okay, what's the ROI of the Nike logo? Well, on the balance sheet of Nike, the logo is worth $76 billion on the balance sheet. Branding shows up on the balance sheet. What are the assets, the intellectual property that you can leverage through marketing channels? Marketing is all about how do we make noise? How do we create structure, infrastructure, systems, processes, and how do we push it out into the market through advertising? Once all that activity takes place and it's healthy, like you invest $1, make $2, then you get sales, and that's cash flow. So branding is all about the balance sheet, marketing is all about profit and loss, and sales is all about cash flow. You go from branding to marketing, then you get the cash flow, and then the cycle continues. You take the cash flow and you say to yourself, how do we improve our brands? How do we get closer to the community? How do we get more creative and really build this equity over time? Because you can't build a Nike in 2 years.
No.
You have to really build a fan base that are ride or die. And really the market are the brands. Like, you don't really own it. You have to kind of influence it. The brand exists out there in the world with the impression. But I guess to bring this all together, like, how do you make sure that this system works? You have to be strategy led.
Yeah.
And if you're not strategy led, you're just kind of rolling the dice on what might work. You're going from one strategy to the next, and it doesn't create a consistent system. And then you would be devoid of branding if you can't have consistency. Yeah. Branding is all about consistency over a long period of time. It's the long play.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't have one without the other. And brand, I think, definitely comes first before you do any marketing.
Yeah. and people ask me, like, dude, should I like market first? Should I brand first? It's different for different people. Yeah. Like, Ogilvy had this really great quote, and he said that if you start a company with a logo, you started late. So you can just go out there and have a crack.
Yeah, right.
But at some point, when you start to discover yourself, figure out what you want to do, you should probably brand it.
Yeah.
So with me, I just was like having a crack. And then I was like, this is kind of going somewhere. Let me brand it. There's no right or wrong to that, but branding will definitely help improve marketing.
For sure. Absolutely. Now let's talk about the 90-day brand plan. What's the sort of process around creating that book? How long did it take, and the general takeaways?
Yeah, so I got to give credit to our global director of media, Cam, who manages our podcast. We had an email from Wiley Publishing, and they were like, "Hey, ever thought about writing a book?" And I was like, "Maybe, but like I'm busy as hell. I'm doing 18-hour days. Like maybe later, Wiley." And I went to Cam.
Squeeze it in.
Yeah, I can't squeeze it in. So I went to Cam and I was like, dude, I don't know if we can write this book. And he's like, dude, it's Wiley. I'm like, who's Wiley? And he like showed me little research papers and stuff. He's like, dude, they're one of the biggest publishers in the world. I was like, okay, cool. But like, I don't know if I have time to do it. And he's like, we should probably do it. So like we dived in and we started to talk to Wiley about publishing a book. And they said, well, what do you want to write about? And I was like, I actually think it's probably about personal brand. Like that's the era that we're in. We did our research. No one had really written personal branding content or books about it that had a substantial personal brand. So when we looked at the market, there was a couple of personal branding books out there, but when you looked at the profile of the individual, it wasn't that big. So we're like, okay, cool. We have a big profile. There's a need in the market for this topic. Not many books exist. Hey, Wiley, we think we should do a book about this. And like, that sounds great. We started to investigate our audience and talk to them. We said to them, like, what are the biggest challenges that you're having with personal branding? We had over 900 people reply to us with a survey. And then when we went through the entire survey, and again, to Cam's credit, he was the one kind of pulling apart all the pieces together with myself. It really came down to 5 things. So even though we had almost 1,000 applications, it was really 5 things. I'm scared. Where do I start? Is it worth it? How do I make money with it? And also like, how do I make sure I'm doing the right thing? And then we were like, okay, cool. Let's write the book about that. We'd figured out all those things, and the book really touches on that. And we think that, you can launch a brand pretty much immediately as an individual. You just have to start publishing content. And the book was all about just starting. Like, it's not about mastery. It's about the process of beginning your journey and just kind of failing through that process. And it's just some intellectual property and some frameworks we created. So it's part story, part framework, part like a parable or a metaphor. We wanted to stay away from like tying ourselves too much to something that was relevant now but would be relevant in years to come. But the interesting thing about the book was it did really well at launch. And it had some, success in retail, and we were successful in retail in the US, in the UK, and here in the Asia Pacific. But what really we found interesting was it's had like a second launch about a month ago. The book's starting to go viral, and it's been out in the market for a year. And what we realized was that books take time to cultivate, but the book's been a great referral system, and our community have just picked it up. They're buying it for their friends. They're spreading the word. But like the book itself, for me, it's just a mechanism to help people reframe what personal branding is and how they can start. Yeah.
And I think a powerful way to further secure that authority in the space. Like I know Sabri does a fantastic job with his book. And that's it's like the only or the main funnel that they use to make noise online. So is that something that you're going to start doing as well, just sort of pushing the book, or is it a bit of a different strategy?
Definitely. Yeah. I think Sabri had a great strategy. We actually met with the team that launched his book and helped him manage that. It's a great lead generator, because essentially what he was doing was like, fill out this form, get the book for free. And really what's happening in the background there is he's just getting a database of everyone who's interested in sales, marketing, or advertising. So he's very intelligently built an enormous database of people who are interested in his subject matter. He's put together a fantastic book, and he runs a very successful global enterprise. But he very much used the book to build a database. And, I would say the book in and of itself is not necessarily a great moneymaker. If anyone's looking to be an author, it is a long journey to make profit with a book. But if you're trying to cultivate leads for your business and you build a personal brand and you launch a book, it gives you credibility, it gives you status, it opens doorways to do podcasts. It's got us on international stages with Stephen Bartlett and Gary Vee. Like it definitely acts as like a door opener for a personal brand.
And it's a self-liquidator too, right? Like if you can advertise something and make that money back just on the shipping, which I'm sure a lot of people do with book funnels, then that's great. You're getting free leads in a way.
Yeah, like think about how much it costs to like acquire a customer. It could cost $400, $500, $600 maybe. I know lawyers that paid $2,500 for a client.
Yeah.
And a book, what does it cost, man? Like $25 to produce a book, and you can self-publish a book and launch it on Amazon for like 20, $25 per unit. And hell, man, I even know people that are using ChatGPT to write the books for them.
Yeah.
So like you can fast track the process and do it yourself, but it's definitely an underutilized methodology of making a play at the marketing playbook. I think anything that's a little guerrilla or a little outside of like the traditional SEO, EDM, like anything extra that you can do to cultivate a fan base, man, like a book's a great way to do it.
For sure, yeah. And it doesn't have to be, I mean, you've got a fantastic book, but in terms of like just having if you don't have that much time or maybe not the know-how or skill set to do it or resources to generate, a proper book, you can actually, like you said, jump on ChatGPT. You can do audio recordings and transcribe that. There's people out there and companies that can write it for you. So yeah, there's lots of ways to sort of to ideate one.
Yeah, and even writing the book, man, like teaches you a lot about yourself. Like I wrote the majority of my book on a flight,
right?
Or flights between keynotes and etc. Then I'd sit down with my team and we would pour through the chapters and we would revise it together. And I have a fantastic team, and give credit to Jared who did the illustrations, Cam who helped me co-write it. But like it's not that hard, but it's just time consuming. And I think the most important thing, I think, if you're considering making a book for yourself, is try to create intellectual property first.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, like these are great places to test material. And if it goes nuts, then you could reconstruct that piece of material into a portion of a chapter potentially. So the majority of the book is 4 years of our best performing content reconstituted into a structure that is taught through a book. So most of the subject matter in the book was from my Instagram.
Yeah, right. Okay, very good. Now let's talk about your agency, Rivyl.
Yeah.
You've built quite a powerhouse there.
Yeah.
I've seen in the office, and it's amazing what you built. What's going on there, and how have you built such a great business?
Yeah, man, it really started off like with that story I had with Mario. Like I was in the first year, it was a content creation agency. So like there was a big wave on Instagram in particular about 5 years ago for carousels. Now carousels are like these swipeable.
I think that's where I first saw you online. You had those amazing carousels and just like the infographics that just the content in them was just really powerful.
Yeah, we noticed like it was quite early. So the first people that really pioneered that was a guy named Michael Janda. You can look up more Janda on Instagram and find him, and Chris Do. They were really the two people that were pioneering that kind of format. No one else was really doing it except for like breakfast photos or gym photos or whatever. These were the first two people I'd seen that were like trying to kind of create like little mini booklets every time they would post every day. And what I noticed on that particular format was they had a really high reshare and a really high save rate. So I was like, I'm going to do that. And I started to teach myself how to write, how to design diagrams. And that was a really hot trend very early on. And that's how we ended up being a content creation agency. Was I was producing a carousel, sometimes 2 a day, every single day.
Yeah, wow.
And people would reach out and say, can you do these for me? And I was like, sure. At one point in time, man, I had 48 clients pay me on a retainer to produce all their carousels every single month. So I wasn't only making my own carousels, I was producing 48 other accounts' carousels, and burnt myself out, man, working 18-hour days, but it was good money. But when I chat to my mentor, he's like, dude, this is a trend. This trend will die. You need to plan what your next move is. And together, we decided that I should go down the brand building route. So then we started Rivyl, and we hired a bunch of people. Now, Rivyl in and of itself, I guess typically if you look at agencies, they need retainers to survive. If you don't have a client paying you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month on a retainer, it's pretty hard to stay alive in the market with a big team. So you see a lot of agencies kind of, I guess, hit a ceiling of like 10 staff, and they really struggle to get past that point. We had the luxury of like having hundreds of thousands of followers that were constantly DMing me and asking for help. So we just continued to provide free value, and that really fed the agency. Now, the tough part about running Rivyl is it's all project based. We don't have retainers.
Okay.
We come in like a SWAT team. We strategically unpack what your brand's struggling with. We upskill the entrepreneur on how to build and manage a brand. So it's a part like mini university around, okay, we're going to teach you what branding really is. Like we're going to take you down the rabbit hole. And we have a joke at Rivyl called Rivyl Insomnia. People come in, they do their workshop, and they're like, man, I can't unsee bad logos in the world. I can't unsee bad fonts or bad design. So we teach the founder, and then we build out their strategy, their visual identity, and then we come up with an execution plan. Then we plug them into an ad agency or a web developer or what have you. But that's the hardest thing about Rivyl is it's project based. However, we've had the luxury of just having an enormous fan base globally that continue to want to work with us.
Yeah, awesome. And I guess it's project based because that brand process would have to be a start and finish right at a certain point.
It's a lot of work, man. The average project takes between 600 and 900 hours to produce.
Yeah, we're going through the process with you guys at the moment with one of my clients I'm consulting with, and yeah, definitely opened my eyes. And we knew that what the sort of people we had initially to look at that project was just not going to cut it. But even myself being in marketing for so long, it definitely opened my eyes into like, okay, this is a different beast.
Yeah, we're trying to be like samurai at it. Yeah. Like we're not coming at it with templates. We're not kind of trying to cookie cut the scenario. Like every brand we sit down with is like, cool, let's get right back to the bare bones, strip back the whole thing. And it's a deep psychological analysis around the team behind the brand, what they're capable of handling, how they like to work, and then building a structure behind that. And it's building a brand identity team is interesting as well. Like you can't go out in the market and hire a brand copywriter. You can hire a copywriter, but most of them do SEO or EDMs. So when you sit down with a strategist or a copywriter, you're like, hey, have you ever built a brand before? Most of them say no. So one of the other issues we had was trying to teach designers and teach copywriters and researchers, like, what is a brand? It's like people are poorly uneducated on what it really is. And it's a pretty old art form. Like it goes back to the 40s with the ad men, etc. So man, I was pouring through like me and the team went out in the market and we were trying to find brand identity manuals from the 40s. So we have like NASA's brand identity system from the 40s. It's 189 pages. And what we found is when you go back to the 40s, man, they were deeply psychological. Yeah, wow. Like they were really academic, deeply psychological.
I guess that's all they had to go off as well, right?
Yeah, and they didn't have like all of these online number crunching analysis. So they had to go out in the market and talk to people. And what we found is like brands back then, when they were really pioneering the 40s, 50s, 60s in branding, they spent a lot of time talking to their target market. Whereas now you can just go on ChatGPT and be like, tell me about X market, and it just spits out data. So I think what people were forced to deal with in those eras of branding, marketing, and advertising was they had to really get their hands into the dirt and figure things out. And that's why I'm excited now, is because even though we have access to all these online tools, people are still struggling to get their brands to work because they're kind of bypassing this conversation with their target cohort.
Absolutely. That's one of the main things, that if we have a brand that's stuck in not knowing their customer, we've got a couple of really good direct response copywriters that we use, and they go and do that exact exercise. They'll go and actually talk to 3 to 5 of their customers, ones who don't know them, and really find out why they bought with them over their competitors. And it uncovers a lot, you know?
Yeah, it's hard work, man. Like,
Oh,
it's like, what questions do you ask them? How do you get them to give you honest answers and not manipulated answers and so forth?
We've become so lazy today. I think there's like, with access to everything, it's just we try and skip so many steps. And you're right, the art form becomes lost because we don't know it's there.
Yeah.
And it's quite
I think
funny.
that history repeats itself, man.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen eras where, you know, marketing goes mass production and then it goes back to organic. Like, it's happened before. So when people are saying, organic is the new thing, I'm like, no. It happened in the 60s. It happened again in the 80s. And it's happening again now.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, the best way to get an upskilling on branding is like, go back through the history, man. Because, like, I mean, they didn't use the word branding in the 40s. It was all advertising. But if you look up the original advertising work, it was all about creativity, all about psychology.
And that's how I feel with, like, I got thrown into the direct response world early on in my career, and that was at its peak, you know, with 10-step funnels and all this crazy stuff going on. And I feel that's become a bit redundant now. And I feel like we're more in brand marketing than we are direct response marketing.
Yeah. And you can see the headache of that, because like people
people
get on calls and they're like, what's the ROI of branding? I'm like, okay, we seriously need to upskill you on what branding is first. They're like, what do you mean? Like, tell me the ROI. I'm like, well, what's the ROI of your current marketing? Well, we don't know. I'm like, well, you don't even know what your own numbers are. But like, they're looking for a reward in something that's creative. If you were to say, well, what is the ROI of branding? It's like, well, how much of a connection do you want to have with your audience? A lot or a little? Well, we want to have a lot, but then you look at their Instagram and they have a wall of content that says, please buy our shit. Our product's better, coming soon. It's very preachy, very, very monologue. And the challenge is, branding isn't a monologue. A monologue is like, I'm going to tell you what to think. I'm going to tell you what to buy. I'm going to tell you why my product's great. If you think like that, you behave like that on social media, you behave like that through advertising, you're not going to get much attention.
No.
Branding is about having a dialogue, and it's about understanding what is it that my target consumer are dealing with? How do they see the world? How do they identify their problems? How do they tackle their problems? What language do they use? What words do they use? You know, so if you get into like some weird stuff like the inspired unemployed, and if you take the inspired unemployed and you put their content in front of a person who lives in Sweden, they might be like, this is funny, but I don't fully get it. But you put that content in front of an Australian, they're like, oh, I totally get it. I have friends like this. It's super culturally relevant. So like, the difference between appearing foreign and appearing like really relevant is about deeply understanding the psychology and the interplay of your targeting cohort. That's the ROI of branding. Do you want people to look at your content and go, oh, they get it and I get it? Or do you want them to look at it and go, oh, they're trying to sell me something?
Yeah, and that's so true. And like, we always get it wrong because we haven't spent the time on getting it right, you know, because we're trying to help our clients so much. And we were just discussing before, you know, you put your own, sometimes you put your own marketing at the bottom of the list, you know, even as a marketing agency. We've
done it, man.
Oh man, it's just so funny. I'm just like, yeah, of course. Like, we know what to do. It's just, we don't put the time into it. But I guess with everything you've done, you know, your agency, your personal brand, your book, you've sort of done it all within what someone could do within the space. What's been the hardest challenge for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Doing all of it at the same time. No, I
wearing 100 hats.
Yeah, I think like trying to be a dad of 2 kids, trying to run a company of 40 people or nearly 40 people, having a podcast, writing a book, touring internationally, all of this stuff, like just trying to manage quality control across the board has been really tough. Yeah. I would say, honestly, if I'm really reflecting, like the past 2 years, my personal branding content has suffered just with how busy I've been. I've tried to keep up, but if I have a regret, it's kind of sleeping on my own personal branding. Even though I've kept it in maintenance mode, we're going now back into growth mode.
Okay.
The hardest thing for me was getting the company to operate itself very sufficiently without too much of my involvement, to a point where I was happy with the quality control. We're now at that place, and myself and the team are kind of creating like a slight breakaway where it's like it's still one big team, but we're gonna have Rivyl, and then we're gonna have my media crew. So the future of what we're trying to produce here is now the podcast. We want to go back to TikTok, back to Instagram, and really try to honor those platforms, because you can't be lazy with this stuff. I think we're now seeing entrepreneurs, founders, executives hire a small crew, and that crew's dedication is on the founder-led content.
Yeah.
You can't just do it yourself anymore. No. You need a small team. And I think if
that
anyone...
makes me feel good.
Yeah, there you go. So if you want to get the advantage right now, build a small team. And it might sound nuts, like, oh, I need to go hire like another sales rep or what have you. No, go hire a content creation team.
Yeah.
You will murder the competition if you can get that thing tuned right.
Yeah, and like I feel like I'm at that. I mean, I've only just been caring about it the past probably year. Prior to that, it was just agency, and that was it really. Agency in my personal life. Now I'm sort of blending the two. But even with, Wisecast with helping me with the podcast, we've got the agency helping with everything else, and my personal brand, that's still 3 channels to manage.
It's a lot,
and like even myself, it's just like at the prospect of even me posting every day is a scary thought.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to be able to do that myself. There's no way. I could, but it wouldn't be great. It's not going to be great content.
Especially if you're trying to keep keep it creative, keep it fresh, and people get tired of seeing the same thing. So you constantly have to kind of reinvent how you approach things. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge overall I think we have right now is trying to create an infrastructure for this whole system to accelerate on its own. Going from being, I guess, the leader with my nous in every corner of the business to developing a leadership team that are like crushing it without my involvement. That's a really hard stance to take, because I like being involved in everything. So the hardest thing for me is just like letting go and giving my team the resources that they need, the ammunition that they need to crush it without needing to have me involved. Yeah. That's been the hardest, scariest, most nerve-wracking thing I've experienced personally.
Yeah. And that's so true. It's like, what would happen if you're not there for a day or a week? Can that business continue to function without you? Yeah. And that's often probably the hardest thing to let go in a business that you've been so focused within. Yeah. And particularly relies on your personal brand. But yeah, that's just putting sort of confidence in your team, which you have to do at some point.
I find it comes back to 3 things. And my business mentor, Josh Sparks, was sharing with me, because he was a merger and acquisition lawyer, and he's been involved in a lot of massive companies. So if you think about McKinsey, they have a rule, and he was sharing this with me, that the rule is 3 things make or break a company. So if you're looking for VC capital, or you're looking to build a company that's able to survive without your constant involvement, it comes back to 3 things. So McKinsey, when they're investing in a company, they look for leadership. Does this company have a good leadership infrastructure? 2 is management. Can they manage business as usual in an effective manner where they're making good profitability? Can they manage their profitability? Can they manage their workload, their delivery system, the client satisfaction? The 3rd thing is forecasting. Can they predict what's going to happen in 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months? And typically, if McKinsey see 2 of those 3 things are in disarray, they won't invest, and they give that business a high likelihood of going under in a certain period of time. Yeah, wow. So most businesses here in Australia, so like if you look at Suncorp Bank, I think in 2014, they brought out a report that was 97% of businesses in Australia go under in the first year. Out of the remaining few percent, they struggle to survive within a 3-year period. And by 5 years, 1% of that 3% are left standing. It's always back to leadership, management, and forecasting. So for me, my whole obsession has been over the last 6 months is like, how do we get a better leadership team? How do we build better management systems? And how do we actually forecast finances and marketing?
Yeah, very good. So you mentioned that you're a father of 2. You're having family life outside of your 18-hour days.
Yes. I don't do 18-hour days anymore, maybe 12-hour days, but yeah, it's being a dad's awesome, man.
Very good. Yeah. And what keeps you going sort of outside of agency, podcast, personal branding life? What sort of gets you going?
Man, on the personal front, I love seeing my kids grow and learn. so it's been really fun, like having a boy and a girl and kind of learning about like their different interests and how they see the world. Obviously supporting my partner and hanging out with my dog. On the business front, I think where I'm really excited right now is like going all in on the media stuff. So like you've got this fantastic podcast. We're going all in on our podcast this year. But yeah, what lights me up, what keeps me going, man, is like I love hanging out with people, and I love sharing with people like the interplay between creativity and commercialism. So most of our competitors are highly creative in the branding sphere, but we don't see as strong of a support from the commercial front. So business owners right now, especially in the Asia Pacific and Australia, are really struggling to keep up with inflation and how the market's getting slammed. So I'm lit up right now because I want to help Aussies get ahead. So whether people are getting started, they're in the middle of their problem, or they're accelerating, it's really partnering with people to go, hey, this is how we really get our claws on good creativity for your business and inject some commercial success. I just light up when a customer gets the aha moment of like, oh, creative can really make money for us.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think educating and lighting others up, it's been a ton of fun for me. Yeah,
you're literally practicing what you preach.
Yeah, man.
Very good.
Yeah.
So what's next over the next 12 months for you? I know there's a lot of big things going on at the moment, but yeah, what's the main focuses in the next 12 months?
Yeah,
how do you stay relevant?
Next 12 months, we're gearing up for TikTok. TikTok is gonna have another wave, and we're gonna go really hard on the YouTube.
Okay.
So I think that YouTube's just super relevant for our industry. Not only are we doing the podcast as a YouTube-centric podcast, but we want to make long-format content on YouTube. So we're setting up a production studio, a permanent fixture for the podcast, as well as like an interchangeable set that we can use for long-format YouTube content. And I'm excited, man, because like now I'm transitioning into doing that a lot more, and Rivyl becoming ever more independent in the best way possible. It's like an adult now.
That's
it's
awesome.
not an awkward teenager with pimples anymore. So like we have shout out to Jared and Luke and Em and the team. Like these guys are just taking the helm, and I get to jump in on projects that really interest me. That's what's exciting, man. Is kind of returning to my creative roots, and kind of becoming the attention lightning rod for the business. That's my focus for this year.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Well, mate, it's been awesome having you on. I'm sure we could chat all day on all of this stuff, but we'll leave it there. And mate, I'm look forward to everything that's going on with the future with Rivyl and obviously with the podcast and I'll keep following. And mate, thanks for coming on and discussing your whole life and your journey. It's been great.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Cheers.